Welcome back, everybody. Ready to dive into another fascinating piece of history with me?
Always. What do we got today?
Well, today we're going deep into a 17th century comedic play called The Feigned Curtizans.
Okay, the Feigned Curtizans. So 17th century, that's English Restoration era, right?
Yep, that's right. And get this, we've got all kinds of goodies to work with. We've got excerpts from the actual play itself,
Nice.
a prologue, a dedicatory epistle, and even some notes about a performance from back in the 1700s.
Wow, so we're not just talking about the play, we're getting like a glimpse into its history and reception, too.
Exactly. It's going to be a wild ride. So buckle up if you love theater history, 17th century England, or even if you just need a good laugh. This deep dive is for you.
I'm intrigued already. You know what's really fascinating about these old comedies is how they use humor to like comment on society.
Oh, totally.
We get to see their anxieties and those norms all played out in these ridiculous and entertaining ways.
Okay, so picture this two sisters, Marcella and Cornelia. They're trying to escape arranged marriages.
Oh no, not the dreaded arranged marriage plot.
Uh-huh, right. But here's the twist. Their solution is to run away and pretend to be courtesans.
Whoa, bold move. But I can see the comedic potential there, for sure.
No, it's there, and it's not just about dodging the altar. Their disguises give them this incredible agency.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it's like a taste of freedom and control that women back then rarely got.
Exactly. And that sets the stage for all the chaos that unfolds.
I bet. So who else is in this play? Give me some of the characters.
Oh, we've got a whole cast of crazy characters. Like there's Sir Signal Buffoon. He's obsessed with being fashionable and sophisticated, but he's always tripping over his own feet, metaphorically speaking, of course.
Ah, the classic fop character. I love it.
Then there's Mr. Tickletext, a Puritan, who, well, let's just say his attempts at piety often clash with his, shall we say, less than holy desires.
Oh my goodness. Sounds like a recipe for disaster and lots of laughs.
Oh, totally. And we can't forget Petro. He's this cunning servant who's basically the puppet master of the play.
Petro the Puppet Master. I like it.
He uses disguises and tricks to take advantage of everyone's follies. It's brilliant.
I can already picture the actor playing him with this like mischievous twinkle in his eye.
Totally. Okay, so you ready for some specific examples of the ridiculousness we're dealing with?
Hit me with it.
All right, so Sir Signal tries to woo this woman who, unbeknownst to him, is already someone else's mistress.
Oh no. That's awkward.
Talk about a recipe for disaster. And then there's the scene where Tickletext runs into a man in the dark. And because of some mistaken identities, let's just say things get very interesting.
Oh my goodness, this play sounds like pure chaos in the best way possible.
It really is. And it all culminates in this big fight scene. It's pure farcical humor. We've got mistaken identities, a lost sword. Somebody even brings a bass viol into the fight.
A bass viol? What in the world?
I know, right? And poor Mr. Tickletext ends up stuck in a bucket.
No way. You're kidding. I can just imagine the audience roaring with laughter at that.
It's got to be one of the highlights of the play. I can't wait to dive into that scene more.
Absolutely. I'm already hooked. But now I'm curious about this dedicatory epistle you mentioned.
Oh, yeah. That's where things take a bit of a turn. It's addressed to a Mrs. Ellen Gwynn, and the author just piles on the praise. It's almost over the top.
Really? Like how so?
Well, he compares her to celestial powers, says even those conquered by her fame pay her tribute. It's wild.
Wow. It makes you wonder what kind of impact this Mrs. Gwynn had on the author and maybe on society at the time.
Yeah, it's definitely intriguing.
It is. So we've got the play itself, this super flattering epistle. And didn't you say something about performance notes too?
Oh, yeah, we've got some notes on a 1716 revival of the play at Lincoln's Inn Fields.
Interesting. So this play had some staying power, huh?
Apparently so. This particular revival featured some big names of the day, like Jay Lee and Mrs. Spiller. But get this, it only ran for 3 performances.
Oh, wow. So even a popular play like this could struggle in the fickle world of theater.
It really shows you how quickly tastes can change, right?
Absolutely. Now, before we get too deep into the weeds here, I'm curious what stands out to you so far about this play.
That's a great question. I think what really gets me is just how much humor they packed into this story.
Yeah, it sounds like a real laugh riot.
But I'm also curious about this Mrs. Gwynn and her connection to the author. That whole dedicatory epistle
It's just,
screams intrigue.
it does. And what about you listening out there? What's grabbing your attention so far?
Yeah. Does this kind of humor, with all its mistaken identities and slapstick, still resonate with you after all these centuries?
We'd love to hear your thoughts. It really makes you think, right, like, could some of those crazy characters still be walking around today.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've met our runaway sisters, Marcella and Cornelia, trying to avoid those arranged marriages. But it's more than just that, isn't it?
Right. Remember, they're not just running from husbands. They're looking for something more.
It's like they're testing boundaries, right? Trying to experience freedom and control something women back then didn't really have.
Exactly. A really bold statement for the time.
Totally. Take Marcella, for example. She uses her courtesan disguise to test Philomore, the guy she's actually in love with.
What do you mean? To see if he's really to her or just the persona?
Exactly. It's like a 17th century social experiment.
Oh, I love that. So she's in control. She's calling the shots.
Yep. And then you got Cornelia. She seems to really enjoy the freedom her disguise gives her.
So she's not just avoiding marriage. She's like actively challenging what's expected of women.
Right. She's using her wit and charm to outsmart all these guys who are trying to woo her.
She sounds like a real firecracker. It's like she's proving that women, even back then, could be just as cunning as men.
She's a force to be reckoned with. Okay, so let's talk about the guys who fall for their charades. Starting with Sir Signal Buffoon. He's like a walking caricature of a clueless fop.
Oh, yeah, Sir Signal.
Yeah.
He's so focused on appearances that he misses what's really going on.
Totally. Remember that scene where he tries to impress everyone with his terrible Italian?
Oh, yeah, that was priceless. Pure comedy gold.
And then there's Tickletex the Puritan, who, well, keeps finding himself in these hilariously compromising situations.
Talk about a walking contradiction, right? It's like the playwright is poking fun at hypocrisy.
Oh, definitely. It's a reminder that things aren't always what they seem.
That's a lesson that's still relevant today.
For sure. Oh, and we can't forget Petro, the puppet master behind all the chaos.
Petro. He's always scheming and tricking everyone.
It's brilliant. What I love about him is he's not really mean-spirited. He's more like a mischievous observer, using his smarts to outsmart everyone.
And he kind of exposes the absurdity of it all, right? Like the social hierarchy and the people caught up in it.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the comedy and the feigned courtesans, but there's got to be something deeper going on here too, right?
Oh, for sure. Well, it's funny. It also makes you think about some serious stuff like the sisters disguising themselves as courtesans. That raises some questions about women's choices back then.
Yeah, were they really free? Or were they just trading one set of limitations for another?
That's a good question. And then there's Tickletext and his hypocrisy. That's something we still see today, right?
All the time. And the whole idea of social mobility, like Sir Signal trying to climb the social ladder and Cornelia wanting a secure future, it shows how money and status can mess things up.
Totally. It's like the Feigned Curtizans is making us laugh, but it's also making us think critically about society and gender roles and how things aren't always as they appear.
A lot to unpack. What about you? What resonates most with you about those deeper themes?
It's tough to choose. But I think the sisters' struggle for freedom and control really speaks to me. It's something that's still relevant today, don't you think?
Absolutely. How about you listening? What are your thoughts on all this?
It's amazing how these old plays can still feel so relevant.
I know, right? Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into the Feigned Courtesans, I think it's safe to say this play is more than just a silly comedy.
Definitely. It's got those laugh-out-loud moments, but there's a lot going on beneath the surface, too.
Like all those mistaken identities and witty banter and over-the-top characters.
Oh, yeah. We can't forget Sir Signal always trying to be sophisticated, or Tickletex the Puritan, who can't seem to stay out of trouble.
They're comedy gold.
But then you have the sisters disguising themselves as courtesans, which makes you think about the limitations on women back then.
It's like their disguises become a way to explore and challenge the world around them.
Right, and it makes you wonder, did they really find freedom? Or were they just facing a different set of rules?
That's a great question. And then there's Tickletext. He's hilarious. But he also forces us to look at hypocrisy, which is something we still deal with today.
Totally. He reminds us that people aren't always what they seem.
And Petro, the clever servant, he shows that intelligence and resourcefulness can come from anywhere.
He's the ultimate underdog, using his wits to turn the tables.
So, the Feigned Courtesans makes us laugh, but it also makes us think about society identity and the masks we all wear.
It's a reminder that even stories from centuries ago can still resonate with us today.
It's been a wild ride. And for all of you listening as you go about your day, we'll leave you with this: what masks do you wear in your own lives?
And what freedoms or maybe limitations do those masks create?
Keep exploring those questions, because sometimes the best deep dives are the ones that leave us with more questions than answers. Until next time.